going on, Governors? Chisgule here, and today we're going to be talking about city defense, not from some hypothetical perspective, but from actually having my city rallied not once, not twice, not actually 3 times, but 4 times in this KvK, and although one of those is in a live stream where I was honestly not prepared, this time around, gosh darn it, I was more prepared. I actually thought I had been prepared previously, but I wasn't. So anyways, I'll have a card up in the top if you want to see the other time that my city was rallied. I'll try to find the timestamp of that exact moment so you can jump right to it. Was Attila Takeda. But here, I've been rallied 3 times, and this time, I was much more ready. Now, there's a bunch of things I want to talk about in this video. City defense, the best commanders, I want to talk about the best equipment, I want to talk about preparations that you make, because here are the things that I had ready. I had equipment sets ready for when this was going to happen. Okay, now I thought I had those also on my Theodora when my Xeno YSS was out of my city. I didn't. That was a little awkward. But I've got a city defense set ready to go. I had multiple talent builds, which we'll review, ready to go so that I could switch between these builds, whether or not they were using Attila Takeda or they were using a skill damage-based build. I had something optimal ready to just flip and switch, no thinking required. And again, I thought I had that ready for my Theodora when I got Attila Takeda rallied earlier in the KvK, and I found out I hadn't applied all my talent points, which was kind of awkward. So let's start by just reviewing a little bit of what's going on in these reports, which I think is pretty important. Let's start with the first rally that I showed in this video, which actually was the second rally on my city, as it turns out. This was the strongest rally by far, and this reaffirms what I shared in my tier list video, and I'll have a card up in the top for that if you want the legendary tier list, showcasing the fact that XY with Chandragupta is the combo you use for high-powered cities, because they did some damage to me. Now, you may be thinking, whoa, Chisgule, that report is amazing for you, and it is, right? This is a 2-for-1 report, but keep in mind, my city's fully reinforced, and they were putting troops in my hospital at a rate of 6 million power loss per minute. Now, really think that one through. If they had actually reinforced this rally more, it would have potentially been a very different story where suddenly I was starting to get lots of dead troops. They were doing an astonishing amount of damage to me very, very quickly. And yeah, it takes commitment to take down a high-power player. But yeah, if they had committed with all those marches they had nearby, and believe me, they had a lot more marches than you saw on screen there, they could have done a lot of damage to me. Like, I'm really surprised they half-heartedly committed in this attempt, because I thought they were really going to go for broke. It just seemed like that was what they were going to do at that moment. I'm very shocked they didn't. In terms of the buffs that we were using here, this is Heroic Anthem. So I really appreciate Tripod shouting out the 2 skills I should use here. I asked him voice. I was like, what do you think I should use? And he said, you should use Zenobia, the 4th skill, doing damage over time. There's a chance to have that trigger. And then also Belisarius. When the enemy gets below 50% of units, get 25% more damage. Well, that is why, in part, my damage numbers were so large, which you saw in the video when I tried to highlight that. Now, for their XY Chandragupta, I think in their perfect world, they also would have used El Cid. The other thing they chose is a healing ability, which I think is really... This is a big question mark in their choices. So I think that if they had another skill available, that would have been better. I mean, even Martel probably would have been a better choice, I think, at that point. I mean, I think they could have really done a lot of damage, a little bit more damage. I don't know, not that much more damage, I suppose, if we're being honest. I just don't think much of the heal ability here for the XY Chandragupta pair. Now, you may be wondering, Chisgule, why are you using YSS Theodora instead of, using your Zenobia? And that's something I want to talk about very soon, but I do want to just show the stat screen just so that everybody can see kind of what we're working with here. Now, in the fight that I showed with the Attila Takeda where they kind of stuck it out for a little bit there, this trade was just insanely positive. So you look at the number of dead troops they got and the number of sev wounds we took, and I mean, either this player shouldn't have been rallying me, or I think the reality is that if they had, geared up their Attila Takeda and they were doing all this attempts to hit my city, it's just not nearly as good, not even fractionally as good as the XY Chandra. But I think there's a little column A, a little column B that I think probably this player was not optimally kitted out to be running this rally. If we just get a look at their cav stats, 81% cav health is shockingly low. They've got 129 cav defense, 251 cav attack, but that cav health stat is concerning to me. That feels very, very low in terms of where perhaps they ought to be, especially for rallying a city of this size. But that said, they've chosen an ability that gives them a really nice shield and an attack boost when they get low, which I think is kind of interesting. I think that's a mighty fine choice, actually. And then the Martel counterattack, I think, is pretty solid as well. And you can see I'm going with the same thing here, but I've switched my talent build to go from being, anti-skill damage to having nothing that's anti-skill damage to try to really optimize my defense in this situation. So I was very much kitted out to handle this and really handled it very well. And then they attacked one more time with Attila Takeda, and this did actually better by a long shot than that other Attila Takeda, so it looks like they were taking this a little bit more seriously. And here we see the El Cid skill, which I think is a really great choice. When you get below 50%, you get 25% more damage. So, they were going to get below 50%, and the extra damage boost is really nice. And there's that Martel counterattack that I was talking about being, I think, a really solid choice. So I think this is the right set of skills, and we can see that the report is better. And we can see they've even got 94% cav health here and 294 cav attack. I kind of wonder if that first Attila Takeda, they just forgot to put on their gear, which is pretty tragic. I almost think that might be the case. With 152 defense here for cavs for this player, I think these stats are better, although, these days, I am really stacking a lot of health on cavs to try to elevate the survivability of those cavalry. But this Attila Takeda rally, it did definitely much better than the other one. 107,000 sevs for me, 16,000 deads. And the reason you're seeing deads in these reports is because my city has been max reinforced. Because, of course, trading in a city is the absolute best scenario in the game. And people are putting siege in my city, and I'm okay with it, man. If they want to put siege, that is perfectly fine. It is a great way to get resource aid. So defending a city, as I showed when Negan City got rallied, card up in the top, is one of the best things you can do, the most advantaged defenses in the game, if you expect the captain knows what they're doing, because when you lose troops in somebody's city, you get speed ups and resources, which is kind of amazing. So from those 3 hits to my city, here's all the speed ups and resources that I got. No, it's not all that much, to be honest, but it's better than nothing. So now let's talk about the choice that I made of YSS Theodora and why not the Zenobia. And I want to start by showcasing the troop composition of my city. I barely have any infantry left compared to where I started. I started with over 6 million infantry, and I'm down to 2 million infantry. And obviously, I still have a lot of troops left to work with here. But I mention this because when we look at Zenobia's skills, a part of what she's offering is a bunch of infantry stats, which, okay, it's only 40% of stats, but I don't know. I think there's a really good question to be asked here is, would the Zenobia have been better? And I really debated this. I've got really good infantry talented gear. And I thought, well, wait a minute. Why shouldn't I just use this infantry gear? And what's more, it's talented, which is nice, but they do have secondary stats. And a lot of the infantry gear I have chosen here has more secondary stats than just going with pure sets. And I'll show you the build I actually used, the gear that I actually used to defend my city. And I calculated the total stats, and I felt like they were about the same when I had done the math, but that importantly, a lot of the stats that I would get from this set would have been for infantry, of which I did not have that many anymore relative to all the other unit types in my city, right? There were let's say when you account for reinforcements, 2.5 million infantry, which means there was 11 plus million other stuff in my city. So I went with a different set on my YSS, which is right over here. Now this leverages the 2-piece bonuses from 3 different equipment sets. And the reason I'm going for that is that it gives a benefit to all troop types. So the 2-piece bonus on calves is giving me 3% troop health for all troop types. For the infantry set, it's 3% defense. And then for the archer set, I'm getting a cool 3% attack. So if we look over here, you can see I've got those bonuses running and a bunch of stats in here. Now, again, I feel like the grand total of stats here, and especially the distribution of stats being not on my infantry, but instead on all my other unit types, was the way to go. instead of using the Zenobia. And if I just showcase this set and the volume of stats you're getting here, you can see there is a lot of infantry stats involved. So maybe the Zenobia would have been a better play. I genuinely would like to hear your thoughts as to whether or not Zenobia would have been a better pick over the YSS. I'll say that Zenobia is solid against XY Chandra. Zenobia is really disgustingly good against Attila Takeda. But these days, I mean, you know, if you're rallying with Attila Takeda, like, you're just doing it wrong unless you're hitting a low power city. We're sending a rally really deep to hit a mid to low power city that you're not going to be reinforcing or looking at in any way. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how my city defense went. I mean, I really did go and optimize every last bit. I did at the time have the commander tab even in the right place. So every single stat point I could eke out here, I tried to get. And when it comes to the support skills that I could use, I could have done some counterattack. I could have done a little bit of extra rage gain. But I do agree that, like, the Zenobia 4th skill just seemed really outstanding. It just seemed like a lot of damage to crank out onto the target that's hitting me. And then again, 25% damage. It's just so hard to argue with the effectiveness of that. Certainly more than the Kusunoki counterattack, more than the YSG 10% of stats. Like, that doesn't matter all that much. I did go and get a rune, which I don't know that I had for every one of these attacks, but I did have it for the XY Chandra when that was hitting my city. So that was really important to have in place. Overall, I mean, I'm pretty happy with how my city defense went, but I've got to give a word of caution to anybody who thinks they can take a city rally. And I'm just going to say, think again. If they reinforce that, man, I would have been losing a lot of power. I mean, a lot of power if they had been reinforcing that. Again, 6 million power per minute was the rate with which they were filling my hospital, right? And they almost got to the point where they were going to fill my hospital. I think they put like 570,000, if I remember correctly, of my troops into the hospital. So they were on the verge of giving me dead troops, which still would have been a really positive trade for us. But if what they wanted to do was just zero somebody, I mean, you commit to that and you can certainly get the job done. The question is, are you committed enough? If you enjoyed this video, throw a like on here and consider subscribing. And I talked about a whole bunch of videos that I think you probably want to go and check out. Those cards in the top, you just tap the little info button and you can go see something else next that is related to city defense, like when my city got hit with Attila Takeda, and I really kind of wasn't ready for it on stream with over 1,600 people watching live. If you'd like to see every single report from this KvK, I did save pretty much every rally report. So leave a comment if you did, and I'd be happy to just kind of cruise through all of these so people can see kind of what went down and how the trades were. There's just all kinds of stuff that was tested and shown here, and I imagine you'd probably be pretty interested in it. Until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom. Oh, and probably don't get your city rallied.